Now, I had a lot to say about this on air last night, and tonight I'm joined by one of the world's best writers and thought leaders, economist Henry Ergas. Henry, I'm so delighted to have you join me tonight. What is your response to the ICC chief prosecutor who claims that he had reasonable grounds to believe that Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant were criminally responsible for war crimes and crimes against humanity?
Well, I was, like many others, I was very surprised by his recommendation. And I wonder what the underlying elements or cause of it is. I think it raises any number of issues. Amongst other things, there's a question about whether the ICC has jurisdiction in respect of Netanyahu and the defense minister, given that Israel has a fiercely independent and very effective judicial system. And there's an underlying principle that where allegations can be pursued through the national judicial system, that is what should occur rather than those allegations being taken up in the ICC. And I think that's a fundamental objection to this process, that what it implies is that in any democracy, the ICC could take over functions that really are best handled by its own judicial system and could do so in the cases of Netanyahu and the defense minister on grounds seem unlikely to meet the standards it has itself set for finding criminal liability.
But Henry, aside from the jurisdictional issues and the issues of due process, you know, do you agree with the Wall Street Journal that said that this would be like condemning Churchill and Roosevelt in World War II for going after the Nazis?
Well, there's certainly an important element of that. I mean, you just need to read the things Churchill said, including when he said, well, we will basically bomb them to smithereens. The point about it really is that, in a sense, war is war, and countries pursue wars. Countries like Israel or Australia, for that matter, or the US, get involved in wars where there are vital interests at stake. And if you are involved in a war, the objective of the war is to win, and you do what is reasonably necessary to achieve that objective. That doesn't, in and of itself, justify war crimes. It obviously doesn't do that. But you have to be very careful to ensure that you're being scrupulous.
Yes. Well, and there's no evidence, of course, that Israel has committed any war crimes at all. In fact, all the evidence points to it going far above and beyond what any other country around the world has done to protect civilian life. I mean, Israel distributes leaflets warning people to evacuate before it moves into an area. It has stayed on the phone to people before they evacuate to make sure they've evacuated a building before it strikes. You know, it goes above and beyond. And analysis that others much more across the figures than I have done shows that actually the civilian death toll proportionally is quite low in this war and lower than others. But Henry, what do you think of the Australian Prime Minister's unwillingness to criticise the ICC while Joe Biden and the UK and, you know, others around the world have said the decision is outrageous and incomprehensible?
Well, to my mind, the Prime Minister should take a stronger view. Not merely because this decision raises so many questions of substance, but also because of the risks it poses to Australia itself. If the ICC is allowed to essentially intrude in domestic jurisdictions when it doesn't, under its own charter, have that right, then that will raise substantial problems and risks not really for the US, but for Australia. And so we need to be vigilant to maintain our sovereignty, including our sovereignty relative to the ICC. And that's why, on top of all the other aspects of this decision, why President Biden has been so strong in his response. The US isn't a member party to the ICC, but if the ICC pursues in this course, then there's no prospect whatsoever that Congress will ever accept the United States becoming subject to ICC jurisdiction. And that, in turn, will severely limit whatever the legitimate ambitions may be of an entity such as the ICC.
Yeah. All right, Henry Ergas, thank you very much for joining me this evening.